Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Andrew Clark, joined, as always, by Mr. Chris Emery.
What's going on? Welcome to the Bayview Podcast, everybody. Good to be here. How are you today?
Doing well.
Yeah?
Rocking and rolling.
Dude,
yeah.
The sun is shining.
Yeah.
Finally.
Hopefully this isn't like fourth spring or whatever they call it, or preparation for a second winter.
I just have to believe someone killed the White Witch.
That's crazy. But yeah,
because
probably.
It's been nuts up here. Yeah, the White Witch we've been in Narnia. It's been nuts. I'm not even happy about it. So, happy now.
Yeah, doing well, though.
It's always good,
Good
man.
weekend, so good stuff.
Yeah, we just came off a huge weekend. And a lot of you guys are here for our Man Up event, and just a huge win all the way around. And along those lines, so we're super stoked. Always have guests, but especially when we have one that has spent time with us. And so we're happy to have Nate Kingsbury with us today. Welcome, man.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
It's been awesome what God's doing.
Yeah.
It's been cool to see your church today, too, man. To see what God's doing here as well. It's great.
Well, it's definitely God. We kind of jokingly tell people, like, it's got to be him because we're not that good at what we do. But we're not kidding. We're really not that good at what we do. So we're making it up mostly as we go along. It's all smoke and mirrors. So it's got to be God, right? So, no, it's just if you missed out, Nate was with us Friday night, Saturday morning. Had about 80 dudes come together just for this really intensive short time together for a weekend. Had some fun. Had some golf simulator action, some basketball, some good food, big old steaks. I mean, big, awesome steaks, great breakfast Saturday morning. Anyway, just good stuff. But then Saturday morning to have you with us for both services and just for our bigger church family to get to spend some time with you. It's just a real blessing, man. So
thanks, man. It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been great being here.
It's just always good to connect with you because you and I go way back.
Yeah, man. Back at NTS days.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, back in the day, man.
Back in the day, he was the man.
Yeah.
I was a young youth pastor coming in and coming right out of Indiana Wesleyan. I was like, "Who's this Chris guy?" So he was the dude, like, back in the day. You said you kind of looked up to Nate.
Yeah.
I looked up to him. So it's
that's
really
awesome
to be here with you, man. It's been great.
I'm glad that you know the real now. You saw behind the curtain. You saw the wizard behind the curtain. He's a sad little man. So now it is.
But I could beat you at basketball, though.
You could always,
right,
yes,
all right,
absolutely. It's definitely now. My knees don't do it anymore. So, but no, it was good. And I had a chance actually a couple years ago to be down with you at your church. So Nate's the lead pastor at Stoney Church. Oh, sorry, that was me.
Yeah.
Don't hit the table. I should know this by now. Nate's the lead pastor down at Stoney Church in Washington,
Michigan,
outside Detroit, right?
Yeah.
Detroit area. Just awesome church family. What God's doing there is cool because your story, it's cool. And you and I talked about this, Stoney's church and Stoney's story and Bayview's story, a little similar in that God's been bringing new life into something.
Oh, yeah.
They kind of went through some down seasons.
It is, yeah. It's been just seeing God work in that and seeing what He's doing here, but also in our church has been crazy because there was a season where we were kind of scared at Stoney what's going to happen, but God has kept taking care of it and had His hand upon it. So it's been awesome seeing the growth and seeing, I think this year it's really neat, but we're at 80 people saved, people coming to know Jesus. So it's been very, very awesome to see what God's doing. But there was a season, man, where I was like, I don't know, God, why did you call me here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But God always has a plan when you trust in Him. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
It's been good.
Absolutely.
Really cool.
And how long have you been there?
7 years.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So not too different than how long I've been here. So
No.
awesome. So you probably told us this, in different settings this weekend, but we have some listeners that maybe weren't here this weekend. Tell us a little bit about your family, your wife, your kids.
Yeah.
You got an awesome family.
I do. I met my wife at Indiana Wesleyan, and we were in a choir together. I can't sing at all, but I was in this choir, man, and she's she's right beside me, and it's my sophomore year, her freshman year, and I didn't talk to her the whole time. I was like, this girl's cute right here, but I didn't talk to her, and I find a picture later on that we were in choir together, and I didn't really even know it, But Lindsay and I have been married a good many years now. We have a 21-year-old named Micah. He was there this weekend. I have my daughter Julia and Hannah and Isaac, and they're great, man. And they're in ministry with us, and they're a blessing, man. So I'm really happy about my family. Recently, my dad just moved in, so that's an adjustment. But it's been awesome to just be with my dad and have him in our home, and our family's kind of taking him in. It's been awesome. So,
and your dad's a retired pastor.
He is. He just retired recently. So yeah.
Such a cool way to be honoring your dad. You know, we see how that. I know you and I are experiencing that. You know, and I don't think your mom is as old as our parents quite yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
But we're all of a sudden like your role in their life begins to change, and you're always ticking towards caretaker, right?
Yeah.
And years ago, I was having a conversation with somebody, and it kind of dawned on me that, you know, when we're kids, we honor our parents by obeying them. But then as they grow older, we are obedient by how we honor them. And so this is just biblical obedience, taking care of our parents and honoring them that way. So I think it's super cool, man.
It is. And I was like, it was really hard. My mom got sick a while back. She died like 2.5 years ago. And I remember we wanted to do everything we could to bring her in our house. We even got our bathroom done, all this stuff. And little did we know that when we got the bathroom done, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, she passed. And like, we didn't know that us redoing that would be for my dad later on. So it's just God always like intervenes, and he takes care of things, and he's got a plan beyond anything that you can ever think of. So
so good, man.
Yeah, it is, man.
So good.
So
how have you seen that play out in your life? Like, give us a little bit of your Jesus story, ministry, and kind of your background, how you grew up.
Yeah, funny. I used to come here for the Cherry Festival all the time.
Okay.
There was a guy here that was a pastor in this area called Roger Freed. And so we'd come up. We were friends with that family. And so I would go to church camp all the time. But I was brought up in a Christian home. Great parents. They led me to the Lord. I was always brought up in church. Always, you know. But really, my kind of story comes that I always really knew the Lord, but my problem was challenges that I had in school, like trying to find out God's call and God's purpose for me. So like, you probably didn't even know this, but I struggled big time in school, was in special education as a kid, and had to work through all that stuff. And I remember I was good at athletics and good at sports and stuff like that, trying to always kind of fit in and find my groove. And a lot of times I'd use that as humor and to be able to make it and fit in with everybody and all that stuff. And it was really a challenging time. And I remember just struggling and thinking, hey, am I going to get into Indiana Wesleyan? But the Lord always had his hand on me to like open up the doors of possibility and said, hey, I got a calling upon your life. One of the scriptures that is my life verse is this Acts 4:13. It says, when they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized they're unschooled, ordinary men, they took note that these men had been with Jesus.
So good.
That was a big thing for me, because when they looked at these guys, they said, these are ordinary people. And I always looked at myself as an ordinary person, but I knew that God had a plan for me, and I had to trust in that plan and understand, even though school didn't come easy, even though college, when I went to Indiana Wesleyan, was so challenging. I don't know if you were a good student, but oh my goodness. I just had to trust God and just take it all the steps along the way. And it's just been cool, the journey, dude, that God just chooses to use you, even though you know that you're nothing without him. You know, and when you start thinking, and the good thing is you can't ever get kind of cocky about yourself as a preacher when you know that it's been all the Lord that's done everything. So like, you know, some guys struggle, like maybe they're, hey, I'm really good at what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm really not. It's only because of you, God, that anything is capable of making an impact for you. Is only if I lean on you and trust in you is the only way that you're going to work and make this all happen. So it's kind of cool, man. That's kind of in the moment that you start thinking, man, I spoke good today, or hey, I'm a really good leader, the Lord always reminds me of what he brought me through. And that it's only because of him that God chooses to use me. So it's been great to be able to speak to the guys and be a part of this weekend and just be able to share some of that. And, you know, it's been awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was thinking about speaking on a Sunday, and it's like every time I've got off the stage and had any thought of like, I think I killed that today. I hear it's just crickets, and I'm like, you know what? Like, my bad. Because of the very next week, when it's like you feel like you just fumbled it. Like, that's when someone's like, wow, that changed my life.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
like, okay, God. Like, I see what you're doing. Like, I'll just move. I'll get out of the way.
Same thing. Like some of the messages, I thought, oh man, that was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get an email that my life was changed. I'm like, I don't know what you were listening to. I don't know what that was. But.
So no lie, like 2 years ago, Andrew and I were doing this team teaching Sunday. We'd been going through this series. And like, hey, let's wrap it up with the team teaching kind of thing. We'd never done it. And so we're sitting at a table on stage, and I'm facing kind of off to the right of the auditorium, Andrew's to the left. Well, we're just barely getting into it, and we notice it on the front row. This new family has come in, and it's a husband, wife, 2 kids, and then another dude, and they're all rough. Like they just, you can tell they've had a rough life, right? And it does not take long for this chaos to begin to unfold on the front row. Yeah. It starts with one of the kids grabs dad's coffee and literally just pours it out.
Yep.
No way.
And I'm watching this. Andrew can't quite see it, but he can probably see my face.
I can see just the entire church turn and look, and I'm like talking to Chris, and I'm just thinking, okay, what is I as the person on stage, like you're thinking the thought of like, I can't bring attention to this, so I'm just gonna fight through the fact that no one's listening right now.
We're plowing through it, and it just keeps getting worse to where the husband and wife begin to argue about it. He keeps going to get refills, and the kid keeps dumping it out. Like, why are you refilling it? Yeah. We're watching our security and our usher staff do absolutely nothing about it. Like, they didn't know what to do. Yeah. And then while this is going on, then he's down on his hands and knees, and he's trying to wipe it up. But his pants start falling off, so now we've got that happening. Yep. Then the guy with him in the middle of all this decides he's got to get out of here. So he stands up. What we didn't know is he was going cold turkey off of something. Like, he was on hardcore withdrawal. He makes it to the back of the auditorium, and he goes down face first, collapses, right? So he's out. So security drags him. They get him out into the lobby. He's in convulsions. EMS is out there. This is all just busting loose. And this is on a commitment Sunday. This is like a Sunday where we'd put a ton of intentionality into it. And, of course, we get done, and we're all just devastated. Like, man, God, we had planned. We had such great plans for this Sunday. Yep. And because of this, it was complete loss and waste of our time. That Sunday, we had more first-time salvations in one service than any other service in the history of Bayview.
That's awesome. Wow.
Nobody heard a word we said. That's the thing.
I don't remember what we said.
Hundreds of heads watching this play out. Nobody's listening to me and Andrew. We could have preached whatever we wanted. We could have read our shopping list that our wives sent us, and they wouldn't have known. Yeah. And it was God. What you're saying is God's reminder, like, listen, I enjoy using you guys, and it's fun to watch you be cute and think you're awesome, but I got this. Right, this is really all me, and that was just such a big reminder of like, man, we're just we're here to be used by Him, but our best opportunity on a Sunday is to be obedient and stay out of His way. Yeah, and not try and get, and that's what happens. Like, we get in His way, and so and that's so evident that's how you minister, and I've appreciated that your heart with that this whole weekend, and. We don't take it lightly to invite someone to preach, from our stage. And I trusted you from the beginning. Yeah. I mean, there was no doubts, but just to watch you do that with such a good heart, and just, it was just an awesome weekend. And we just appreciate that so much.
Thanks, man. It was funny when you were saying that. I was thinking of a time it wasn't long ago, but alarms went off. That we had actually a fire expression system not working. Alarms are going off in the middle of the service. I'm like, how do I handle this? You know what I mean? Then our back screen went out. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what are we gonna do? And the sound wasn't working, so I had to just go old school, man, and just talk and preach and. But God worked. So it's almost like in that chaos and that mess, God still shows up, man. He's still present, and He's still working. And so sometimes when it happens, I go, okay, God, you're doing something. And I just have to go with what you want to do in this moment. It's pretty neat.
Well, how many times in the Bible do we see it where it's a rock star leader and the environment is absolutely perfect and everything is in place all the time, and God comes in and they kill it? That didn't happen in the Bible, right? Yeah. It's always the least expected individual. It's the Gideons. Yeah. It's the chips are stacked against God's people or His individuals, and I mean everything says this isn't going to work. Where that's is like God saying like, listen, this is when I like to show up. So there's no doubt. Yeah. How many times did He say, I'm going to do this so the Israelites cannot boast it was them? And I think it's even the same way for any of us in our lives, not just in ministry. So this is way beyond pastoral stuff, right? This is just in your life. Like, living a life that's victorious in Jesus Christ does not point to how great you are. It points to how great He is. Yeah. And I think that's our best posture, right?
I also think in those moments, like the Holy Spirit just has time to take over, because you have to rely on him. Like you can't, your schedule don't work, the sound's not working, nothing's working. You have to say, okay. I remember sometimes back at camp, way back in the day, sometimes it wouldn't work though, so they just pull out a guitar, and it was just so raw. And in those moments were some of my best moments where I encountered the Lord, is when it was all scaled down and we were just in the presence of God. So it's pretty cool. Sometimes I think it's neat when it happens. Don't like it, but it's pretty awesome.
It's legit.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. It's just one of those things that we so often try to put ourselves in a spot that God never asked us to take. And it's that whole sit at the head of the table or sit at the foot of the table.
Yeah.
You know, I think we have that mentality. So it's so
really
good,
cool.
man. So this last weekend, then you shared, you talked about Strongholds Friday night and just slayed it with our dudes there. And then Sunday morning, we're in this wilderness series. You talked about just, is Jesus your anchor in the suffering and in the pain? And it was so perfect because we've been talking a lot about that over the last weeks. We've been in this wilderness series for a couple months now.
This would be 7 weeks.
This will be week 7 right now. Yeah. And the whole theme was, that we often find ourselves in some form of wilderness, whether whatever sends us there, and you talked about that anchor in all that. So kind of tell us, give us a recap a little bit, maybe someone listening, or what is it that made that such an important topic for you?
I think the idea, when I remember I was on a boat, and I shared this on Sunday, but I was on this boat for this youth pastor gathering, and I remember that we were out on Lake Michigan. I mean, it's Lake Michigan. Like, how's the wind bad on Lake Michigan? It's just a lake, but we were out there, and we stayed overnight on this boat, and I remember that waking up going, dude, these waves are crazy. I'm in Lake Michigan. And I walked out, and the captain was on this boat, and he said, hey, it's okay, dude. The anchor will hold. And I remember thinking about how significant it is, no matter what challenges that go into life, that the anchor in Jesus is what holds it all together. If you're sick, friends that have had cancer, watching my mom go through major things with her diabetes, in all of that, she was anchored in Jesus. So when you look at, we did a big look into Job and his life and about all that Job went through, but he was anchored. He was blameless. He was chosen for this moment, if you think about that. But in his sickness and all that was taken away from him and all that he did, he was anchored in Jesus. And in my life, I've come across some amazing people that went through major mess, but we're anchored in the Lord. I remember this, I get emotional on this one, but we had a girl in our youth group. She was 15 years old. Her name was Leah, and she had a heart attack. She was like a star basketball player, and she fell on the gym floor in Grand Haven, Michigan, and had a heart attack. And literally this 15-year-old girl, when she came out of this coma and airlifted and all that, she ended up being like a 4-year-old. So it was really hard to see this thing happen with her. And later on, as I shared about on Sunday, she actually died again on the basketball court. She was shooting free throws, and she then fell on the gym floor, and she passed. And we did her funeral, and I watched her dad during that time. I can get emotional because he was so anchored in Jesus that he lost so many people in his life, but watching him in that moment to respond to God and to actually share with people how good Jesus is in the moment of all that he went through, I'll never forget as long as I live. I didn't even know what to say. I was supposed to come up after him. Yeah. And I was so moved by what he said, because I realized if there's anybody that I want to be like, I'd want to be like Jeff. Because in a situation so bad like that, his dependence and his trust and his love for Jesus was strong, that it would see him through that very difficult moment. So it's pretty powerful, man. So it was great to be able to share. I was thinking about, I shared too about my buddy Josh, and a guy named Josh who went through a lot. He lost his daughter, where a ceiling fan kind of fell off of the window and fell into the crib, and his daughter, literally it suffocated his little daughter. Have you heard that story before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in that whole scenario, Josh was driving, getting the news that his daughter passed and that this is going on, but he's caught in traffic, And while he's sitting in there, the song called Blessed Be Your Name comes on.
Mm-hmm.
You give and you take away. My heart will choose to say, blessed be your name. And he just, that song just, and he said he's bawling and he's crying and he's thinking through that. And in that time, I don't know if I could pray, dude. I don't know what I would be like in that moment. You know what I mean? Like, just to be raw with you, I would probably yelling out to God, you know. But he prayed. He encountered God caught in that traffic, you know. So just that story of him, to see people being anchored through difficulty, it's powerful, man. And we have to, and we can get through it with Christ. And I wonder sometimes, how in the world can people get through the challenges in life without the Lord? Like, I watch some people sometimes and I'm like, I don't know how you're doing that right now. You don't, but when you have Jesus, man, and he is your anchor, and it's firm and secure in him, there's just a difference that happens because you're able to get through those challenges. It's still not easy, but it's powerful.
Well, and I think that that's something that people often ask, like, how, you know, I've asked that. I've watched other people, how can you go through, how do you have the strength? How do you have the faith? How do you have that? And I firmly believe that there's this whole reservoir of strength and joy and peace that God holds in reserve until you need it at your worst moments, which means I think that there's experiences in joy and experiences in his presence that can only happen in the worst pain. And in the worst loss. And I mean, I think you guys probably, you know, all of us at some level in our lives, we've experienced that. And he's not going to give it to you when you don't need it. And so on the outside, you're looking at like, man, how's that possible? Well, when you need it, you'll know. When you need it, he'll come and he'll pour that out. And we were actually talking about that Friday morning with my men's Bible study, and talking about, you know, there's a couple dudes at the table actually that had been through some serious cancer battles. One of them, actually, I think he's 2 years in now, but they told him initially, you have 4 months to live. And God's healed him. Like, he's cancer free. And, but we talked about, you know, what it took to get through those 4 months, thinking, all right, this is it, I'm done. And he and his wife did nothing but give praise to Jesus and express their faith in God's sovereignty and point to him, not assuming that we're done. And it was such a testimony. So we talked this morning, like, it's not just a matter of all of us living that faith and experiencing that. It's so that others that are watching see it as well. So now we're living this life to show them, like, no, this is how you go through it. And I've been blown away by watching some people's faith in the worst storms, and just be like, wow, wow, that's speaking to me, that's ministering to me, watching you walk that. You know, and I think that's a big part of it as well.
It's funny you said that. I was thinking about a quote that said, you know, every obstacle is an opportunity. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes in that, when that obstacle comes, when that difficulty comes, it's an opportunity to still see Jesus, to walk through that. I was thinking of another quote that talks about the fact that the pain that you go through now will actually be your friend later, because you learned from it. You know, you're able to help someone. There's that scripture that says, may the God of all comfort you in your pain so you can comfort others. So that pain wasn't by accident that you went through it, but it's actually preparing you for what God has for you next.
That's right.
And allowing that. So I think when you're anchored in Jesus, it doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, doesn't mean it's not going to be tough, but God will see you through that when you lean in him to actually use you to be a blessing maybe to someone else through your pain.
100%.
So
I think you preached this, man, a year or so ago, and you might have to change the wording, or I can make it up. Didn't you kind of, there was a moment you were like, hey, don't waste your pain. Don't waste this pain, which sounds so counterintuitive, but.
No, it was my dad who, my wife and I had experienced a miscarriage, and it was just like, I remember trying to process it, and I'm processing it out loud with my dad, and his response was similar to, like, he's like, this sucks. He's like, but you don't know what door is going to be opened or how God's going to use this in the future. He's like, you like this pain that you're experiencing. He's like, it's going to allow you to speak into places and into spaces and into people's lives that you normally wouldn't have been able to. And he's like, and that's a really hard thing to hear. I think of Job. I resonate with Job a lot, of like, Job loses all this and he has to just kind of keep plodding forward. And it's just like that mentality of pain, the perspective of pain can be taken of that. It's an opportunity to really, I think, speak love and peace and comfort into other people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's wild to think then a year later when he passed. And so like to walk through that again of like,
wow.
Okay, now like, wow, Dad, you took your words literal. That idea of like, how do I like, there's now this door opened that depending on how I process this and go through this and give this to God, how am I going to speak into others' lives or just at least understand? Sometimes it's not even the worst. It's just the ability to be there and be present. And it's like that unspoken, like, I get it.
I think God uses our pain to actually be a blessing to other people if we let it happen. Like, but we have to be willing to go and then look back at it and go, okay, this was really hard, but God, you put me right next to this person at that right moment that brought me back to my pain, that gave me the right words to say to this person in this moment. So I do think God has an amazing way of looking at it.
I talk about it all the time when I had two guys in my life who I had become really, really close with, like almost was hanging out weekly with them as individuals and just was like doing life. And the one guy was married to his wife and him and my wife and I, we were hanging all the time. And the other guy was a former student who now had become like a youth leader and just doing a lot of life with these people. And so when my dad passed, there was like this like time where I'm just kind of looking around and I kind of shared off air, like I was looking for other guys and people start speaking in my life, and these two dudes just remained really close. And the one was pretty connected through a lot of just some of the backstory, and he just remained really consistent and faithful. Well, the one individual had lost his dad when he was about 19 years old, and the guy had lost his dad when he was a child. And so they had both knew what I was walking through. And it wasn't like they ever came up to me and were like, patted me on the back and were like, hey, bro, I get it. It was just they were so consistent in their presence in my life. And it was so comforting. And it wasn't until a year or so later when I was sitting talking to my wife about my buddy Parker, and Nicole's like, well, you understand, like, of course Parker gets it. And it was just such that eye open of like, okay, God.
How neat is it that he didn't have to tell you that though? Like, you know what I mean? I remember Josh, that one guy that I was talking about, when his daughter died, my buddy Brian and I went over to his house, and I'm thinking, what do I say to him? His daughter just died. Like, what do I even do? Like, what? And as a pastor, we feel that way sometimes. We don't, in certain situations, you just don't know what to say. And years later, he called me and he's like, hey man, it was really cool when you and Brian showed up. And I go, yeah, we showed up. He goes, you don't understand. Just the power of your presence was all I needed in that moment. I didn't want you to say anything.
That's right.
I just wanted you to be there, and you brought pizza, and you sat with me, and you didn't say much, but you hugged me, and you were there. I was like, I felt that was pretty neat, because you feel like you don't do nothing sometimes. I mean, as a pastor, we don't. When you go in there, just let everybody know, when you walk in there, you don't know what to say sometimes. You have to ask the Holy Spirit to give you the right words.
Or sometimes shut your mouth and give you no words. Because sometimes just being in the room, being there, being present, just silently praying for them in those moments, that's so powerful sometimes.
It is.
So I totally agree. And I think that's where we have to try. I've often felt like when storms come our way, or wilderness comes our way, and we're all hit with these moments, I think that's the moment of truth for our faith, because I think we've all seen it go one of two ways typically. One, it sends people into this spiral where they question everything. They question God's sovereignty, His love, His presence, even His reality. They run to other ways of coping. It just completely derails them. Or we see it go to this place where, like, wow, that is supernatural faith. That's you're demonstrating what we read about in the Bible. And so it's always one of those two things. And I would love to say that all of my storms have resulted in me being that godly. Look how awesome it is. But there's times where I've run around like a panicked child, screaming and yelling too. And thankfully, we have this patient Heavenly Father who's like, silly child, I'm going to wait till you're done throwing your fit, and I'm going to gently bring you back. But I want to think that when I come to that next storm, because there's always another one coming, that I'm not going to let the panic and fear and all that set in. And we've talked about those things a lot through this wilderness series of like, in the wilderness, what do you feel when you're in the wilderness? Well, you feel alone, you feel afraid. Some people feel like giving up. They feel, directionless. I'm completely lost, whatever it may be. But what if in those moments it's like, okay, this is another chance. It's an opportunity for me to experience God at His best.
Yeah.
Even through my pain. It's not that it doesn't hurt, but through my pain. And I think of that story. I was thinking of this Sunday when you were talking about storms and anchor and water and everything. And I often think of the storm of the disciples on the boat with Jesus when the storm comes, and they're freaking out.
They're losing their minds.
Yeah, they are. And granted, it must have been one heck of a storm because these are professional fishermen, so they've been in storms. So this must be a serious storm because they're not just saying this could go bad or this might go bad. They're like, we are going to die. We are done. This is it. Mm-hmm. And they go and they find Jesus sound asleep. And that story makes me think of how I was just sharing this with someone recently of anytime I'm on an airplane and it hits really bad turbulence. I don't love to fly, but I have to fly all the time. If I hit bad turbulence, my immediate response is I lean out in the aisle and I look at the stewardess. If the stewardess is chilling, I know we're good because they do this all the time. They're professionals. Now, if she's flipping out, calling home,
you're
it's up. Something's going. If she's putting on her life vest, then I know it's on. I've never seen that happen, right? But if she's good, I'm good. And I like to think that if I were in that boat with the disciples, that if I would have run, it's not just a matter of just knowing Jesus is there, but if Jesus is good, I'm good. Mm-hmm. But I know I probably would have been more panicked than the disciples. I probably would have been freaking out right there with them. But what if that's how we begin to enter into some of these seasons of like, all right, if Jesus is good, I'm good. Mm-hmm. If He's calm, I'm calm. And He's always calm, right? Yeah. He's always that guy. He never lost panic because He knew. Yeah. He knew who was in control. He knew who was in charge of everything. Yeah. And I think that's that anchor.
Yeah.
Jesus is the anchor because if He's good, I'm good.
Yeah. And I love that Jesus is just so calm in there, man. Just nothing. Everybody's freaking out. And when you look at that, though, you're just like, all right, Lord, how can I be like that in these moments? How can I just trust in You in the moment? And then I love at the end of that, man, when He immediately tells the winds and waves to stop, and they stop. And that's the power of God, that it can stop, and you have to trust that He has that power. So that's powerful.
It is. And I'd like to think that at some point in my life that my faith will grow to the point where if I were in that scenario, it's not just that I wouldn't freak out with the disciples, but that maybe I would even lay down and take a nap with Jesus.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
How cool would that be to have that kind of faith? Be like, all right, cool. I'm always down for a good nap. Let's go for a power 15 with Jesus. Let's do that. Because your faith is so solidified. That even, it's kind of like back in the Old Testament with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Like, listen, God's got this. Yeah. But even if He doesn't, we're so good. Yeah. Because this isn't the end of the game here. This isn't really what the story's about. Yeah. This is all getting me to the story of eternity. Yeah. And I think that's where the faith begins to change how we enter all these storms.
It's just like Daniel too, man. When he's in there with the lions, literally mouse. He's not worried. Yeah. He's like, I'll be all right. He knows. He had a faith that God's going to take care of it. Yeah. So I pray I can be more like that every day of my life. You know what I mean? Just to be able to have that kind of faith and, when something goes wrong in your life, to not have to worry about it. Oh, God's got this. My wife's like that a lot. I can learn a lot from my wife every day, but she just trusts God at all times. So good. So watching her is like, it's something that I'm growing in more and more. But it's really cool to see that in her. Like that so kind of faith and trust in Jesus.
Yeah, that's so good, man. Yeah. Well, listen, it has just been an awesome few days with you, man, and hopefully this isn't the only time. So we definitely want to get you back up here, get you back on the podcast, spend some more time with you. It's just been awesome. Just cool hanging out with your sons and some of the dudes from your church as well. Yeah, it's just been awesome, man. Yeah. So good. Hey, thanks for being with us today. Hope you've enjoyed this time. If you missed Nate's message on Sunday, go to bayviewchurch.net. You can catch all our past messages. If you have not done so, hit like or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. That way you never miss an episode. We're live here every week. For now, it's Andrew, it's Nate, it's Chris. We are out of here. We'll see you next time around.